For the record, we may or may not make some mouth noises that may or may not cause your panties to get into a bunch. You know what? That's your problem, not mine.
This is Shane.
And this is Jeannie. And we are joined today by Damien Marie Athope, axiologist atheist, anti-theist, anti-religionist, secular humanist, rationalist, writer, artist, poet, philosopher, advocate, activist with schooling in psychology and sociology, as well as an autodidact in science, archaeology, anthropology, and philosophy.
Damien promotes science, realism, axiology, liberty, justice, ethics, anarchism, socialism, progressivism, liberalism, philosophy, psychology, archaeology, and anthropology. He advocates for sexual, gender, child, secular, LGBTQIA+, race, class rights, and equality.
And he's been in open marriage for 11 years.
So thanks for joining us, Damien.
Hi, it's good to be here.
So we're going to be talking today about polyamory, open relationships, non-monogamy within the prehistoric, anthropological, and religious aspects of our culture. Damien is going to be helping us out with a lot of knowledge on all the different cultural and sociological aspects of non-monogamy within history. And if y'all don't know who this guy is, we're going to have a list of all the ways that you can contact him.
And there are a lot.
Oh, yeah. You really need to listen to this guy whenever he's really going after right-wing bigots and things like that, because he really knows his things. If there's a subject that he doesn't know a whole lot about, it's not really worth knowing, to be honest.
I believe in human flourishing. And so things that go with that I'm supportive of. And then things that are against that, in a sense, that I'm against. And definitely things that are conservative, like you said, is actually not for human flourishing. It's for the individual, because it's not for the group flourishing.
Well, what do you say to people whenever they're talking about quiverful movement or producing offspring for the expansion of the Christian ideologies, such as in Old Testament and New Testament, where they talk about, go forth and flourish, go forth and produce offspring?
Yeah, but when I say human flourishing, I'm not referring to having children. I think that you can have human flourishing and not even have a child. You can be, in a sense, single and no child. That doesn't have to do with, so it's not offspring that I'm talking about. I'm talking about, in other words, like there's surviving, right? Which is the ability to sustain oneself, in a sense, after, a hardship. And then beyond survival would be, like you have some sort of a well-being, that things are, relatively going good for you. But flourishing is at the optimum of that. It's like when the most good is happening.
So you're talking more like arts and sciences and expanding world knowledge, is not just
right,
not just maintaining, but actually becoming more of who we are.
Definitely. Well, and who we are is emotional. Who we are is relational. Who we are is sexual, emotional. I mean, these kind of stuff, to me, we've allowed, especially like you were mentioning about religion. Religion has made these things that are wonderful toxic. I mean, it's the saddest thing. That all the things, in a sense, that are human flourishing, that help us to feel good, and they want to stop. They want to stifle. I mean,
I don't know if it's a matter of wanting to stop, but more than control.
Well, just think, the concept of God is a supreme being that has the right to take away the rights of others at will, without justice. I mean, so in a sense, they start with like you said, control, but it's a control in a negative, because it's anti-humanism to me. Just the whole concept of gods is like anti-humanism, because it is a being that's telling us what to do. It's a being that's running our rights. If someone were to do that, in any other thing, we would go, that's a horrible person.
Are we talking specifically about Christian deities, or
Well,
Judeo-Christian deities, or are we talking about
all
religion
deities.
just in general?
Well, as long as a deity to me is able to
Uh-huh.
remove my rights at its will and against my will, then no matter what religion, that deity to me is anti-humanist because it's able to remove human worth, human value.
So what is humanism to you?
Well, I would say that humanism is the fact of valuing people. So it's human, right? So to me, it's like it's a lot of different things to a lot of different people, but in general, to me, it's like a philosophy of life. It's like saying that I'm gonna look at other people as equally valuable, whether they're race, religion, stuff. This is humanism, because humanism, in a sense, is not anti-religionist. Secular humanist is
religious, correct?
I was raised in a religious cult until I was 13, and then
I was too.
It was called the local church. You're like, oh my god, same thing. It was funny. It's called local church because it actually didn't have a name, because they would call it like the Church of Huntington Beach, the Church of Santa Ana. Anyways.
And how do they approach sex and relationships within that church?
Well, I didn't know anything. We didn't watch TV. We didn't listen to radio. My dad had a TV in the closet, and so.
Did the TV ever come out of the closet? Please tell me it did.
No. No, he would just want 1 hour a week. We would watch Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom. That's it. So no TV, no radio, except I guess. Well, he listened to it. Was it KCLA or something?
What brought you around to the way that you think now? What kind of progression did you have to get to the point where you stopped believing in a deity, or really started being vocal against religion?
So, I voted for Bush in 2000. I was a conservative. I was a Christian. I had never doubted God or even thought about it. I never doubted Christianity. I was a Christian. I thought my parents' versions of it were kind of insane, but I didn't want to have those. But I thought that in general was true. I don't know why. But once I went to college to be a drug and alcohol counselor, because I wanted to help people, because I wanted to stop being a truck driver and do something else, because I had been injured in a truck accident and was not feeling that great, and wanted to do something that would not involve so much physical. Anyways, so I started going to school. Well, once I went to school, they told me that I needed to, because I wanted to be a drug and alcohol counselor, I needed to take courses on religion. Once I took courses on religion, that was it. I became an atheist. In fact, it was 2 classes. One was world religions. The other one was understanding the Bible. I got halfway through the Bible class and I became an atheist.
Wow.
Did
that tie into you becoming ethically non-monogamous, or was
yeah, kind of. I had already been that way from when I was a kid. I was 15. What?
How did that tie into how you felt about religion at the time, then? I mean, if you were a hardcore Christian, how did you reconcile being non-monogamous with religion?
Well, you mean when I was a kid? Well, when I was a kid, I didn't give a shit about Christianity. It was later that I started. Yeah, I mean, I thought I was possessed by demons, though, at 15.
Oh,
because I liked sex. I mean, well, my mom told me, asked your question about what my parents' religion thought about sex. Oh, they were saying that me masturbating was going to hell, and that I wanted sex and stuff was going to hell.
They don't realize that having sex is how they got you?
Well, because, supposedly in marriage it's okay, but yeah, they,
oh, right.
They were not favorable towards that at all. And when I was a kid, I didn't care what they thought. I just did whatever. I didn't care. But then later, as an adult, I was about 18 or something, I started becoming a Christian again. Then I was a Christian until 36, until I became an atheist. But non-monogamy. So non-monogamy happened when I was younger. and then what happened when I was 15, I did some stuff in a threesome, and I did stuff at like 18 and 20. But then I got married, and then I became a truck driver, and so I was always on the road, and I didn't really do anything. But then I really hated being on the road. Like, I remember one time, I just felt so freaking sexual. It was like terrible. These women were walking by, and I was crying because I wanted to do something with a woman so bad. It was like,
How long had it been at that point since you'd gotten laid?
I think it was 2 months or something. I know. That's
Holy
probably,
crap.
Yeah. But wait. You were a long hauler, right?
I was long haul, yeah. But I would go home each month, but sometimes I would go home and me and the wife would have such freaking problems, yelling, and it was terrible. My first wife was a nightmare. So
Yeah.
that's also what the next one, I told her from the get-go that, I know who I am, that I can't really be friends with a woman without wanting sex with her. I'm just telling you, it's just the way I am. So if I say I'm a female as a friend, I'm probably having sex with her if she'll let me. so I mean, I'm just, but it was really about me and her being more honest.
Right.
We met online.
Yeah, absolutely.
And she was in Colorado, and it was the first time in my life that I just figured I just would tell her everything. Because that way, if she likes it, then holy shit, So I just was really honest.
Well, that is one of the things about poly, I think, is that nobody does anybody else favors by taking emotional shortcuts. Like, by being dishonest, you're not doing yourself or your partner any favors, because they're going to have a false perception of who you are.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Yeah, and I don't like being dishonest anyway, so I'd rather just be transparent and just tell people, what I am and who I am, and they like it or they don't. But
right, just being yourself.
Yeah, but so I really, it was the first time I really did it different, because I had such a bad first marriage. I thought, man, I gotta be more honest. But I didn't for 100% sure I was going to be married. But I started talking to her and stuff, and everything was like, man, it was like, sounded awesome. So we ended up being together, and at first we weren't poly, but then I started feeling sexual stuff, and I said, hey, why don't we pay to get massages or something? And she's like, well, that's a lot of money. Why don't we just do swinging? All right.
That escalated quickly.
That's what I said. Okay.
That's awesome, dude.
But of course it changes. It doesn't just stay the same. So it started out with just, well, really, I would say that really before that, it really, for the massages, it started with nudism, because I said, why don't we go to a nude thing, because I like naked. And she said, okay. So we went and did that. Well, once they did that, then I thought about saying to her, well, hey, why don't we get massages and stuff? And that's when she said to me, well, why don't we just do swinging? But anyway, so we met a couple couples, but it wasn't really her thing. One or two couples, and then she said to me, would you be willing to be in a threesome with the guy and me? And I said, well, I ain't doing anything with him, but okay. And so we did it, and then we went back to couples, and then she said to me, why do I have to do guys? Why don't we just do women? And I thought, all right, great.
Your wife is amazing.
I know, right?
It's like, so look, I mean, guys are great and everything, but, I'd rather do women. And in your head, I can see it on your face. You're just like, okay.
Yeah.
Here, touch my arm real quick.
Yeah, I know. We're gonna have to talk about that on another episode at some point.
All right.
So,
wait, can I roll this back? Like, when you were doing swinging, Damien, were you doing like soft swinging or hard swinging?
Hard. I don't do soft.
No, just to clarify, we'll talk about that too. We'll define that later.
Oh yeah, well, people don't know soft. There's I guess you could say there's soft, medium, and hard.
Join us in a few minutes after the quick message.
We are Polyaskery. Polyaskey. Polyaskery. You can find us at Polyaskery pretty much anywhere. Try polyaskery.com. That will lead you, among other places, to our Facebook page, our blog, our Twitter, and our Patreon. Polyaskery. We are here. Join us, but only with the consent of all the people involved.
Where's the best place to meet your online friends? Where's the best party where the fun never ends? Where will Bobby Carey be our MC too? I bet you'd go if you only knew. It's ReasonCon, it's ReasonCon in Hickory, North Carolina. It's ReasonCon, it's ReasonCon, and the speakers couldn't be finer. We've got Matt Dillahunty and Aaron Ra, Callie Wright and Lawrence Krauss. We've got god-awful movies coming to you live, and Jim Craig and Shelley Siegel really jive. It's ReasonCon, it's ReasonCon. Meet the people in your favorite podcasts. It's ReasonCon, it's ReasonCon, the conference where you'll have a blast.
Damien, can you tell us a little bit about how non-monogamy has been used in history, prehistory, modern times, culturally? Can you kind of tell us a little bit more about that?
Okay, so you said poly, but I would say polyamory is a recent thing, a little bit than a historical one to me, because I would say polyandry or polygamy is way more common in the thing. But yeah, I would say that it wasn't as refined as it became under religion and like harems and stuff. That kind of a stuff was not as much at the beginning. Like prehistory was a lot more equal. There was more types of open sexuality, but it's definitely not exactly the way that we view it now. But I think that we view sex now probably a lot more stringently than people back then. Like, in fact, speaking of, I know there's polyandry. I think it's tribe in like Tibet or Himalayas or something, where what happens is once the brother, like say if there's like 3 or 4 brothers, once one of the brothers marries a wife, then all the brothers can have sex with her. And then whatever child she gets is raised by, in a sense, all of them.
Okay.
Which is is different, because there's always been different. I mean, I see that a lot of stuff prehistory to me was a lot more open in how they did relations. And it wasn't like this, marry forever kind of thing. In fact, even
it was more like tribal community based.
Yes, and like the Hazai of South Africa, they're Bushmen. They have a thing where you can have wives, depending on if you can take care of them, like sustain them, food, clothing, whatever. So the moment though you can't, the wife has a right to just leave, to go to a new guy. And so it's not like a marriage forever kind of thing. It's kind of like, it's interesting because imagine that you would probably have to be a lot kinder because you're always worried about them leaving, in a sense.
Right.
So I thought that kind of is an interesting dynamic, that they always can leave, in a sense. It's not this whole thought that it has to be marriages forever. I just thought that was, so I think that even like a marriage or something is, our concept is so fixed under, and especially to me under Western thing, under Christianity, the concept of what marriage is, or what relationships should be, is we think is normal. I mean, is only normal because we've been taught that that's normal.
Like you were talking about, Damien, polyamory is a newer term. Within the last 50 years, it was really starting to become popular. Before then, it was kind of just non-monogamy or don't ask, don't tell, kind of relationships and things like that. And then, polyandry and polygamy and things like that were very popular within religious sects. Misandry which is women marrying multiple men, was popular within a lot of other native cultures across the world. Now, when you sit here and you talk about that it's more egalitarian within, prehistory and tribals, do you feel that religion came along and really tried to start controlling that? And if so, why?
Well, to me, what we think of as religion and control and the state actually happened at the same time. Like, religion already was happening. Religion happened for us at least 100,000 years ago. To me, because we can see the burials and stuff, and they're done in a sacred way, and it's some sort of religion. They may not.
Right.
Who knows
my
what?
My storm god is better than your sun god.
Yeah,
my
something.
Storm god can cover the sun.
Yeah. Well, storm gods didn't happen until agriculture, so that's 11,000 years ago. There's no need for storm gods when you're basically.
No semantics.
Yeah. Well, no, I understand. I was just clarifying because some people. Well, because
no, he's right. He's right. I just as an example is what I was saying it as.
Yeah.
But but the sun and the moon have been worshipped as gods and deities for a very long time.
Yeah.
Many prehistorical tribes actually followed the sun, as in literally following the sun as it came up and went across as a part of their spiritual journey. And the same thing for the moon.
Yeah. Well, and even there's I can't remember what kind of it's not monkeys. It's I think they're baboons. In somewhere in South Africa, there's these baboons. I think that's what they are. And they do this thing where they all get onto this ledge and then they all wait for the sun to come up. And, there's no reason for it. Once sun comes, they all dissipate and leave. It's like weird.
It's like
all
the Lion King.
Yeah, all I'm hearing right now is the Lion King.
Yeah.
Sorry, I butchered that. I know I butchered that, but it's all that's going through my head right now. It's all that's going through my head.
Are we all okay with referencing also Sex at Dawn at the end of this in the show notes?
Sex at Dawn? What does that mean?
Lewis, what do you mean?
The book? Okay, so never mind. I'm gonna make you add this in, Shane.
What is Sex at Dawn, Jeannie?
Oh my god, I haven't finished the whole thing. It's a scientific book referencing our early cultural history and how we evolved as sexual beings.
Right on.
So it talks a lot about how early relationships and early cultures dealt with sexuality, relationships, intertribal, kind of like how we evolved from monkeys.
Oh, okay.
So, okay.
Yeah, we'll cool. In the show notes. I have not read it.
Well, it sounds like the kind of book I'd like to read.
Yeah, it does. It sounds like it to me too.
No, it's a fantastic book. I just it's a scientific book that actually got a whole lot of traction, or maybe 6-7 years ago, within anybody who was looking to do non-monogamy, because it's scientifically lays out, here's why we are who we are. This is how we as poly people actually. Monogamy, and I don't want to shit on monogamous by any means, but monogamy is not how we learned how to function as a species.
Right.
So it lays that out scientifically and then says, hey, so if you want to, non-monogamy is actually more normal in a lot of ways. So what I was going to get back around to was my history lessons, or my history interests, have largely evolved around early European history, which is when the church kind of took over, and women have been property for a long time, but women also in history have also been able to inherit property, and at some point that changed, and a large part of that was usually due to the church.
Oh, definitely.
Because, so this is kind of where the poly comes back in, and my hero, Eleanor of Aquitaine, brought things like romantic love into. She's the bitch that started it all, because before women were just property, and now you got to actually care about somebody and have a romantic relationship and an emotional relationship with somebody else. And she kind of fucked it up for the rest of us, because now that is our expectation. And then the 40s and 50s kind of changed that, and the 60s changed that again, and the 70s changed that one more time, and then the 80s was the 80s, and we are all a product of our history.
Oh yeah.
So, Damien, we kind of touched on it a little bit earlier before, but why why does religion seek to control the sexual romance of love? Why do they seem to want to always control that aspect of human nature?
Why do I think that religions generally affect sex? The same reasons that they do food. They're trying to basically affect all the things that do with human flourishing and have them under their control. Because if you can have human flourishing without their control, well, then what do you need them?
Right. So they want to kind of dictate that God or their God is in control. So you can't have sex outside of the marriage because that goes against God's covenant with man.
Exactly.
And if you're doing that, then you're committing the sin of Eve, or, in the big three, that's their big turn down. And in other religions, there's always seems to be a female aspect that causes the downfall of man. Hera is she's the big nasty that causes so many issues because Zeus is cheating on her with all these women. And Pandora's box is a prime example of Greek literature. Pandora is responsible for causing all of mankind to fall underneath the, all these diseases, illnesses, jealousies, rages, and things like that. So why does it seem...
Lilith, who wanted to be an equal.
Right. So why does it seem like... Why did it go from being so egalitarian in prehistory to women are essentially shit upon by modern religion? And when I say modern religion being within the last 6,000 years.
Yes, I would agree. I would say it was relatively egalitarian until the first pharaoh. To me, right at that point, when they put, because in the pharaoh's thing it says that you have to be in a sense a male to be pharaoh, and it passes down the male lineage or whatever. So
not always.
Well, the women would have to wear a beard on their face.
Oh yes, there were a few exceptions, but they would have to. Present as male.
Yes. So I'm answering the question. So 12,000 years ago, to me, no god was around, but there was goddesses. There was animal worship, there was that kind of stuff. There wasn't real male gods. So that happens till about 6,000 years ago. You get male gods in a sense. You get it at the same time you start having a lot of fighting. You have the different cultures merging and becoming like Egypt and the first pharaohs, becoming like whole dynasties, starting own mass amounts of land and people and slaves and whatever. And also that's what they did was they classified society. And then about 50 to 100 years later, that ends up happening also in Iraq or Mesopotamia. They start having the same thing where they have these city-states about that time. It's about 5,000 something, 100 years ago. So once they started doing that, they started classifying people. So they have the king priest on top, then they have like the priests under that, and then they have the nobles or whatever, and the soldiers, and then the normal people and the slaves, and then whatever. But when they started doing that, they started classifying people. I believe that they also were classifying females because they're putting everything in a status of what it is, and it was male on top. So even at that time, though, there still was women as kings. At 4,995 years ago is one of the oldest known female kings or emperors or whatever. So it's not like back then. And also they found a 4,000-year-old in Turkey, between Turkey and Mesopotamia, a treaty that basically said women had rights. And so I think but the fact that you have to write a document like that means it's now being challenged, right? I would think, right? So it means that at that time, it must have been before women had rights. You didn't need to write a document in a sense. That's why, right. And I know it was more egalitarian, right? So I know that about that time, obviously, women were starting to have an issue with not having rights. So they had to make a document that said women have to have rights. So, but it's not shortly after that that women start to not have rights again. And then I think that about...
Was that like right of property, or is that right of their own personhood?
I would say that eventually it becomes personhood, definitely, but it doesn't start that slow. It's like a slow peeling away of rights. It's always a little bit here, a little bit here. It's just, and then eventually it's just all of a sudden you're in like cages almost, you know?
Right.
You're going like, what the fuck happened?
Yeah, right. You're looking at 3,000 years ago when Old Testament was really starting to be put together, where women were essentially being sold and bought, and daughters didn't have any rights. The fathers could sell them. You see a lot of that in the Torah and a lot of the Old Testament of the Christian Bible, where, you know, a woman's worth 50 shekels, and she can't, if she cheats on her husband, she gets stoned, whereas the man who cheats on his wife, I mean, there's no punishments and things like that. And what I find funny, though, is it's not just happening in the Torah. It's also happening in China. It's also happening in, you know, Egypt and places like that, where there wasn't a whole lot of, there was communication back and forth, and there was a lot of education back and forth, but it also started happening in South America around the same time as well. There's a lot of Aztecs, Incans, and their precursors, where they were showing where women didn't have a whole lot of power there either, on the opposite side of the world. So,
but Aztec women could actually divorce and own land. So that, I mean, that at least says that was more than what Mexicans almost, you know, did very shortly after the church arrived.
Right. And so, but what do you feel is the why of that? What do you feel is the cause for women to be downgraded? Some of the popular theories.
Well, I think that one of the things is women became a status, which is the same thing that the Hazais still do. That you can get more wives is a status thing. So even if I don't know for sure if it's that tribe exactly that does where women can own other women as wives or whatever, as a status thing, but I definitely know that happens in Africa, in South Africa, somewhere down there, Central Africa, where women, and so the women may or may not be having sex with these wives, but it's just a status thing that they can have them.
Why is it that women becomes a status symbol?
Why does women become a status symbol?
Well, other than we like, is there any other purpose for us to be chattel?
Do you mean to me or to? I think women are equal. I mean,
culturally.
Of why the culture doesn't view women as anything but basically. Well, there's one African tribe that I know that when a man reaches like whenever teenagehood or whatever adulthood to them, that the women of the tribe line up and then they basically get beaten by the guy who's now reached adulthood. I watched that and I was like, and the guy's like, well, this is, you know, their culture. And I'm like, no, that's some horse shit. There's no way that is acceptable to me.
Now, there is a hypothesis that says, and it's supported by a few historical writings and things like that, and I'll post them in the show notes, that at one time women were in control more. The hierarchies of the societies were matriarchal, and that men were treated very similarly to how women are now being treated. And the reason that women were reversed into that role was because men took over and then started writing their own theologies, histories, and treaties to where men were more in control.
I've actually read a book on that, about textiles. We're actually kind of the forefront of getting cultures to talk to each other And because they were the stay-at-home people, they were the ones creating the textiles. The men were the travelers. They had to go out and interact with other people. And that was kind of maybe where the balance started to shift was because men were handling money, learning other languages. The women were doing the bookkeeping based on what the men had to say. But that's just a theory.
Well, like I said, most of the things were goddesses before a certain period of time. I mean, about 6,000 years ago, maybe 7,000. It was all goddesses. Women ran religion, so yes, women had the control because, in a sense, they were the shamans. All the oldest burials of shamans in Israel and other parts are all female. So it just shows that yes, I and this is the problem though. I don't think that means that all of them were matriarchal. That's a different thing. It's like this thing of saying that once there was Barack Obama, there was no more racism. Well, that is not true. And I think the same thing happened in a sense, prehistoric-wise. I think that at first women were valued higher. And then I think that their status started being lessened. And I think that they split women in half in a sense, because you can see the types of goddesses they have, where it's basically the sexual woman, the bad woman, and then the good woman, the mother, the, whatever, the, virgin kind of thing,
Right.
So
like in Greek mythology, you have the fates. You have the young woman who's nubile and fertile. You have the older woman who's the mother and the caretaker. And
that
then
means
you have
I'm a crone.
And then you have the crone who is just kind of like the old biddy who hates everybody, it seems, because, who cares about people who are in their 40s? No offense, Gene.
Well, even like
I own that shit. Don't worry.
Well, even like the Greeks, their oldest thing is a goddess also, and it's the mother Cybele. It's the mother of all the gods. So
right, Gaia. Isn't it Gaia?
No, it's Cybele or something like that, but it doesn't matter. Anyways,
yeah.
It comes.
Somebody Google that shit.
Yeah, well, it's Kybele in Turkey, on the coast of Turkey and stuff. And it has to do with the same mountains.
How do you know that?
Because it's part of my book.
Okay. Well, yeah, but you found that out somehow. No, I'm just like, I'm tangenting here.
I read it in my book, The Mother of the Gods, I think it's called. And okay. I also saw it in an article on it.
We should reference that too in the show notes.
So, but also the Sumerians, their original oldest thing was a female, without a husband. She was a singular female that made the world, and that she ended up making the gods that made the people and all that stuff, whatever, that made the gods. So she in a sense birthed them. So all the old religions were female. When the little bit newer ones, then it becomes, you start being more male. Well, first what happens is, I think, they have the male marry the goddess, in a sense. So then the god and thing, that now they're married. And then they have a kid, so that becomes another deity. Or, and then those things have, babies or whatever, and more deities. It's kind of something like that. But it started female. And then, like you said, eventually it becomes male. I think, like I said, status. But so one of the things is, you have to have power, right? Because if you want to take care of large things of land and keep them from other people robbing them and taking them or whatever, some militaries, you get a cult of basically male, where you start male becomes the biggest thing. Because before that, you have people that go out and do things, but they don't have a large base they're trying to protect. So that's the same thing with women. They start to have a large amount of women to protect. And more women, though, for the ruler, whatever, makes it more offspring. And more offspring to help, you rule, that are part of, And a lot, too, at the beginning, rulers were considered to be almost deities, or that god or goddess had made them special in somehow, or they were a god or goddess. or some of them, after they died, they were deified afterwards. It kind of an ancestor worship turned into, a deity.
Pre-ancestor worship. Yeah. Almost.
Yeah. So so your question of, why does women, women, when it was egalitarian and before really state societies, people were all doing everything. They didn't, especially before farming and all that, women could go pick just like men. Women could go hunting or do whatever, or, take care of the thing. But after, it becomes more aggressive and warlike. 9,000 years ago, Jericho builds its first wall. So violence was happening for the last 10,000 years in the Fertile Crescent. Violence is something that is more prone to be with male soldiers. Although women have fought before in prehistory and history also.
But doesn't that come down to survivable traits that somebody has to fight? So therefore, men who fight survive. Therefore, the dominant traits tend to.
Yes, I would agree.
Or even just so get down to the nitty gritty. Like instead of relationships, it's just rape.
Well, they definitely did.
The male.
Oh yeah, lots of.
A male who is aggressive and will rape is more likely to have his genes passed on than a male who is passive. And women are thus impregnated, therefore trapped, therefore whole nother conversation. But
yeah, well, that actually would explain a lot, because as more aggressive males come into power, the women's power actually starts decreasing, and then at some point you start having a decrease in women's rights. That's a pretty sound theory. So are you interested in our guest Kinks? Become a Patreon member and you can find out more about them.
A special thank you to Jason Comeau. He composed the music for us, and he is a lost state of mind. Go find him. Look for our links.
Thanks for listening. This has been a production of Polyaskery Podcast. If you enjoyed it, please check us out at patreon.com/polyaskery. If you want to give to us and think that we're worth it, please donate $1, donate whatever you want, or share our links and let everybody else know about us. You can find us at polyaskery.com, at Polyaskery on Twitter, or you can look us up on Facebook. Thank you so much, everybody. Y'all have a great day.